1. Luis Resto. Some bans aren't about heat-of-the-moment violence. Some are cold, calculated, and flat-out criminals. Luis Resto's case might be the darkest in boxing history. In 1983, he fought Billy Collins Jr., a young, undefeated prospect. From the opening rounds, something felt off. Resto's punches weren't just landing, they were destroying Collins. By the end of 10 brutal rounds, Collins' face was mangled, his eyes were swollen shut. His career was ruined in one night. The truth came out after the fight. Collins' trainer reached over to shake Resto's hand and realized something was wrong. His gloves felt thinner. Investigators later found the padding had been illegally removed. On top of that, his hand wraps were soaked in plaster, turning his fists into weapons. This wasn't a foul, it was an assault. Resto was banned for life, and both he and his trainer went to prison. Collins never fought again, and tragically died within a year. Resto's name is now shorthand for cheating at the highest, ugliest level. He didn't just break the rules. He destroyed another man's future. No comeback. No redemption. Just a lifetime ban and the most disgraceful chapter in boxing's long history of scandals. 2. Antonio Margarito. Fast forward to 2009. Another plaster scandal. Antonio Margarito was at the height of his career. A Mexican warrior known for his relentless pressure and iron chin. But when he walked into the ring to fight Shane Mosley, the California State Commission made a discovery that changed everything. During pre-fight inspections, officials noticed something odd in Margarito's hand wraps. They were laced with a plaster-like substance that would harden as the fight went on. If it hadn't been caught, Mosley could have faced the same fate as Billy Collins. The commission banned Margarito for a year. His reputation shattered. Before the scandal, Margarito was celebrated as one of the toughest men in the sport. Afterward, every punch he ever landed was questioned. Fans began asking if his famous 2008 win over Miguel Cotto, where he battered Cotto into submission, had been fueled by loaded wraps. The controversy hung over him like a storm cloud. Margarito came back after the suspension, but the aura was gone. He fought Manny Pacquiao, got his face broken, and never looked the same again. For many fans, Margarito isn't remembered as the relentless champion. He's remembered as the guy with plaster in his gloves. His ban might have been temporary, but the stain is permanent. 3. Jarrell Miller. Not every ban is about violence or glove tampering. Sometimes it's about the substances a fighter puts into their body. Few cases are more infamous than Jarrell "Big Baby" Miller. In 2019, he was set for the biggest opportunity of his life, a shot at Anthony Joshua's world titles in Madison Square Garden. It was his golden ticket. But then, the drug tests came back. Not just one failed test, but multiple. Miller tested positive for GW1516, HGH, and EPO, a cocktail of banned substances straight out of a nightmare for regulators. The fight collapsed. Joshua instead fought Andy Ruiz Jr., who pulled off the upset of the decade. As for Miller, he was banned for 6 months by the WBA and blacklisted by promoters. But that wasn't the end of it. In 2020, as he tried to mount a comeback, he failed again. This time, the Nevada Commission suspended him for 2 years. Miller's story is one of wasted chances. A charismatic heavyweight who could talk, could fight, and had the size to make noise. Instead, he became the face of boxing's PED crisis. Fans don't talk about what he could have done in the ring anymore. They talk about how he threw away millions by cheating twice. His ban didn't just derail his career, it rewrote the heavyweight division's history. For Mike Tyson. When people talk about banned boxers, one name towers over the rest. Mike Tyson. The man who scared opponents before the first bell even rang, ended up crossing a line so shocking it still defines him. June 28, 1997. Heavyweight championship rematch against Evander Holyfield. Tyson had already lost to him once. He came in desperate, frustrated, and boiling with anger. By the third round, he snapped. Tyson lunged forward and bit into Holyfield's ear, tearing off a chunk of flesh. The arena turned into chaos. Commentators gasped in disbelief. Fans raged. The referee paused the fight, but Tyson wasn't finished. Minutes later, he tried it again on the other ear. The Nevada State Athletic Commission had no choice. Tyson was fined $3 million, stripped of his license, and banned indefinitely. For a time, the most feared man in boxing wasn't even allowed in a ring. He eventually got reinstated after a year, but his legacy was permanently stained. The incident became one of the most infamous meltdowns in sports history. What made it worse was the setting. A heavyweight title fight, millions watching, the biggest stage. Tyson went from icon to outlaw in a single night. To this day, the bite fight is bigger than many of his actual knockouts. He came back later, but the shadow of that ban never left him. 5. Alexander Povetkin. From Russia, another giant of the heavyweight scene faced his own suspensions. Alexander Povetkin was once the mandatory challenger for Deontay Wilder's WBC belt in 2016. The stage was set. But just weeks before the fight, news broke. Povetkin tested positive for meldonium, a newly banned substance by WADA. The fight was cancelled, Wilder flew home, and Povetkin's reputation took a nosedive. That wasn't his only strike. In 2017, Povetkin failed another test, this time for Ostarine. The WBC suspended him indefinitely and dropped him from their rankings. For a fighter who had been an Olympic gold medalist and world champion, it was a humiliating fall. He eventually got reinstated and even pulled off a dramatic knockout of Dillian Whyte in 2020. But the stain of those suspensions never washed away. What made Povetkin's case sting is how good he really was. Unlike Miller, who wasted potential, Povetkin had already proven himself. He'd gone toe-to-toe with Vladimir Klitschko, beaten a string of contenders, and carried himself like a true pro. But when the tests came back dirty, it all crumbled. Fans now split his career in two halves, before the bans and after. His power and his legacy are always questioned. 6. James Toney. If there's a Hall of Fame for failing drug tests, James Toney would have a wing all to himself. Lights Out was one of the slickest defensive boxers of his generation, with old-school head movement and a sharp counter-punching style. But outside the ring, his reputation got tangled up with steroids. In 2005, after beating John Ruiz for a piece of the heavyweight title, Toney tested positive for stanozolol. The win was overturned, the belt was stripped, and Ruiz got his title back. Toney blamed it on medication for an arm injury, but the commission wasn't buying it. That could have been a one-time stain. But then it happened again. And again. By the time he racked up multiple failed tests, the story of James Toney shifted. People stopped debating his slickness or his toughness. Instead, they debated how much of his career was enhanced by banned substances. Even his foray into MMA years later couldn't escape the shadow. For every fan who praised his natural skill, another pointed to those suspensions and shrugged. Toney was never banned for life, but the repeated suspensions put him on the unofficial blacklist of fighters fans don't fully trust. A legend in ability, but a repeat offender in responsibility. 7. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. When you're the son of a national hero, expectations are a heavy weight. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. never really lived up to the shadow of his father, and his career got derailed by controversies that had nothing to do with skill. In 2012, he was suspended for 9 months and fined $900,000 after testing positive for marijuana following a fight with Sergio Martinez. That wasn't just a fine. That was nearly his entire purse gone. But Chavez Jr. didn't stop there. In 2019, he made headlines again by refusing to take a random drug test before a scheduled fight with Daniel Jacobs. The Nevada Commission banned him temporarily, and the fight had to move to Arizona. When he did step into the ring, he quit on the stool after 5 rounds, showered in booze as fans threw trash into the ring. Chavez Jr.'s name should have carried respect. Instead, it became a punchline. Skipping training, missing weight, smoking weed, ducking tests. He wasn't just suspended by commissions, he was suspended in the minds of boxing fans everywhere. Every time he tried to mount a comeback, those same issues returned. Unlike his father, Chavez Jr. will always be remembered for what he wasted, not what he achieved. 8. Amir Khan. Amir Khan's story is different. He wasn't a clown, a repeat offender, or a walking scandal. He was a world champion, a household name in the UK, and one of the fastest hands in boxing, which made his 2023 ban all the more shocking. After losing to Kell Brook in a long-awaited grudge match, Khan tested positive for Ostarine, a banned performance-enhancing drug. The revelation came months later, and the UK anti-doping agency hit him with a 2-year suspension. Khan denied knowingly taking anything illegal, suggesting contamination. But for many fans, the damage was done. His reputation, already fragile from late career losses, took another hit. The twist here is timing. Khan had already announced his retirement before the ban was made public, so in practice, it didn't derail a comeback or cost him millions. But it stained his legacy. For a fighter who built his name on Olympic glory and lightning speed, the last chapter of his career now includes the word ban. Khan didn't get caught in his prime. He wasn't stripped of a belt. Yet when his name is brought up today, the failed test is part of the conversation. That's the cruel weight of a suspension in modern boxing. It sticks forever, even if you're already out of the game. 9. Dillian Whyte. Few heavyweights bring as much drama as Dillian Whyte. A rugged fighter with knockout power, Whyte fought his way into multiple title eliminators and became a fan favorite in the UK. But his career has been repeatedly interrupted by failed tests. Back in 2012, early in his rise, Whyte was banned for 2 years after testing positive for the stimulant methylhexanamine. He served his suspension, returned, and rebuilt himself into a top contender. For a while, it looked like a bump in the road. Then 2019 happened. Whyte fought Oscar Rivas in a high-stakes bout. Just before the fight, he tested positive for a banned substance. The British Boxing Board of Control allowed the fight to go on while the case was reviewed, sparking outrage. Whyte won the fight, but the controversy overshadowed the victory. Months later, UKAD dropped the charges, claiming contamination, but the whispers never went away. And in 2023, lightning struck again. Whyte was pulled from a scheduled fight with Anthony Joshua after yet another positive test. By this point, fans weren't giving him the benefit of the doubt. Whether he was guilty or not, his name was now permanently tied to doping scandals. Whyte's bans and suspensions didn't end his career, but they fractured his reputation. Every big win came with an asterisk. Every headline carried suspicion. That's the curse of multiple failed tests. Even when you're cleared, people never forget. 10. Is Félix Verdejo. The last case isn't about failed tests or glove scandals. It's about something darker. Félix Verdejo was once Puerto Rico's golden boy, a lightweight prospect promoted as the next superstar. But his career came to a violent and tragic end outside the ring. In 2021, Verdejo was arrested and later convicted for the kidnapping and murder of Keishla Rodriguez, a woman he had been romantically involved with. The details of the case were horrifying. Prosecutors said he punched her, injected her with drugs, tied her to a block, and threw her into a lagoon. It wasn't just a crime. It was a nightmare that shook the boxing world. Verdejo was immediately banned from competition, stripped of any promotional backing, and erased from the sport. His trial ended with a guilty verdict, and he now faces life in prison. Unlike Tyson or Margarito, there's no comeback, no second chance. Verdejo didn't just sabotage his career, he destroyed lives. His name is now a warning about how fast promise can turn into infamy. A fighter once billed as the future of Puerto Rican boxing is now remembered only for a crime that ended everything. And that's the crazy world of banned boxers for you. Some got caught up in scandals, others pushed the rules until they snapped, and a few just couldn't keep their demons outside the ring. But each story shows how boxing isn't just about skill and grit. It's also about choices and consequences. If you enjoyed this dive into the darker corners of the sport, drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and let us know which ban shocked you the most in the comments.